Thanks for joining us at The Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alvarez with the top economic report. As the World Economic Forum holds its 45th session, we bring you a report directly from Davos. We start with the headlines. U.S. President Barack Obama, in his State of the Union speech, called for tax reforms to close loopholes for the rich and to help small businesses. Obama aims to raise taxes on the wealthiest Americans to pay for expanded tax credits and educational benefits for the middle class. The top capital gains and dividends tax rate would rise to 28% from 23.8%, and tax reform would simplify tax return filing for small businesses. But the proposals seemed dead on arrival, given sharp opposition from Republicans in Congress.
As Americans, we don't mind paying our fair share of taxes as long as everybody else does too. But for far too long, lobbyists have rigged the tax code with loopholes that let some corporations pay nothing while others pay full freight. They've riddled it with giveaways that the super rich don't need while denying a break to middle-class families who do.
President Obama also called for trade deals with Asia and Europe to increase job opportunities for Americans. But while Obama aspires to increase exports, the stronger U.S. dollar puts U.S. businesses at a disadvantage.
21st century businesses, including small businesses, need to sell more American products overseas. Today, our businesses export more than ever, and exporters tend to pay their workers higher wages. But as we speak, China wants to write the rules for the world's fastest growing region. That would put our workers and our businesses at a disadvantage. Why would we let that happen?
Moving on to Japan, where the central bank cut its inflation forecast for the year beginning this April to just 1% owing to the slide in oil prices. The central bank had earlier forecasted a 1.7% increase in inflation and acknowledged that its 2% target for April was unrealistic. The bank voted to continue purchasing $680 billion of assets per year to curb deflation. Despite unrelenting deflationary pressures, the central bank was upbeat in its statement, increasing its growth forecast for the year to 2.1% from 1.5%. BHP Billiton is cutting its shale oil production and reducing the number of rigs it operates onshore in the U.S. by 40% due to the drop in oil prices. The world's biggest miner by market capitalization said on Wednesday it would reduce its rigs to 16 from 26 by the end of 2015 to boost efficiency. The planned reduction in drilling would not impact production in 2015, BHP said, and shale volumes would rise by 50% in 2015. The price of oil is likely to drop further as U.S. shale production continues to grow and the OPEC oil cartel keeps output steady. Just 3 weeks into 2015, Israeli startups have raised at least $170 million, putting them on track to a 15-year record high. 3 Israeli startups, AppsFlyer, Takey, and EarlySense, raised a combined $55 million in just 2 days, and another, MoveIt, raised $50 million. Israeli startups raised $2.8 billion in the first 9 months of last year, a 50% increase from a year earlier, according to the latest data. Critics say the cash flow signals a bubble, but most Israeli startups that completed large rounds earned their valuations based on real performance. According to a report launched by PricewaterhouseCoopers at this year's World Economic Forum in Davos, chief executives are less optimistic about the economy this year. And considering the oil price drop, the tough economic situation in Europe, and geopolitical mayhem in the Middle East and Ukraine, they may be onto something.
In Davos, Switzerland, the World Economic Forum's 45th annual conference will host more than 1,500 leaders of business and organizations, as well as high-profile heads of state. The list runs from China's Li Keqiang to Germany's Angela Merkel to Al Gore. The agenda this week focuses on the new global context, with issues such as climate change and the future of the Internet at the fore. However, the International Monetary Fund's Tuesday announcement that it had reduced its global growth forecast from 3.8 to 3.5% will certainly take center stage.
In the long term, we see a growth stabilization on a reduced level. This increasingly worries us because it will have long-term effects on jobs, growth, and economic development.
By and large, business leaders are not content with prospects for growth in 2015, and the annual Edelman Trust Barometer shows a major drop in trust in public and private institutions, below 50% in two-thirds of countries, according to the Reuters report.
Welcome.
As well, a WEF survey suggests that geopolitical fears are front and center, even if most stock markets aren't feeling the weight yet. Indeed, material fortunes shifted significantly last year and may continue to turn.
Not surprising, Russia sits at the bottom of the list at only 16%, which is really a dramatic reversal from last year when they were actually the most confident in the world, looking at the past year.
Central this week as well is Oxfam's effort to push inequality onto the agenda, as they did last year. The anti-poverty organization released a study this week showing that more than half of the world's wealth will be in the hands of 1% of people by 2016.
The clear message that governments should take away from Davos is that they should tax the rich. They should tax rich people and rich corporations progressively and fairly. Rich individuals, and particularly the richest individuals, should pay a reasonable level of tax, the kinds of levels of tax they were paying as recently as the 1990s.
WEF founder Professor Klaus Schwab has said that his organization is on the same page as Oxfam. Indeed, Oxfam's executive director is co-chairing the conference in Davos, which runs until Saturday.
We're joined now on the phone by Eitan Avriel, co-founder of Israeli financial daily The Marker, for a personal report from the forum in Davos. Mr. Avriel, thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
So is the general atmosphere at Davos this year more gloomy, as the PwC survey might suggest?
No, the atmosphere is not gloomy at all. Actually, most of the delegates are reporting that they are more optimistic this year than they were last year. Some people may remember that last year somehow began with criticism of the Davos people around the question of inequality. There's the famous Oxfam report that showed that 80 people in the world have more assets and are richer than 3.5 billion other people in the planet. And that was the topic of the discussion last year. This year, that does not exist. Oxfam did issue their new report, but that story is not catching up, and delegates are doing business and talking about current issues, which are issues that they like to talk about because they feel they are the people who can fix it, so they are important now.
Right.
For example, the prices of oil, which has been dropping, the currency crisis with the Swiss francs. Tomorrow there might be a situation where the European Central Bank might announce a quantitative analysis and purchase of bonds. Obviously some unrest in some places of the world, but this is the turf and this is the area where these people feel good about it. They know what they're talking about. They feel that they are the people that the world should look to fix, and they are in their element.
Okay, I was just going to say, let's tackle these issues one by one. I mean, you say that the general atmosphere is more positive. However, this past year, I mean, we saw Russia go into Ukraine. We saw the price of oil drop. The Eurozone is still not doing much better than it was before, potentially even much worse. I mean, how do the experts at Davos view the prospects for oil this year?
In several panels I've attended, and I talked with quite a few people. They think that the prices are going to stay low around around the current prices, but only temporary. It does not mean it's going to go up in weeks or months. They're talking a year or two from now that prices will be higher. But back to your question, everybody is pinning their optimism on the American economy, on the United States, which is doing, according to every metric you choose, extremely well, with low unemployment, relatively high growth. They are producing a lot of oil, and it just seems that the United States is going to put the rest of the planet with it higher.
Okay, so everybody's essentially expecting to be pulled along with the U.S. economy? Is that realistic?
I tend to be a little bit critical, like what you say, what you suggest. Yes, in some way, obviously, it's going to pull some kind of businesses upwards. It all depends on whether Europe can fix itself a little bit better. But you are right. I mean, most of the world now, the bigger market are the emerging market. China, India, the rest of Asia are much larger than the United States, and they're doing so-so. It really depends where you looking and when you and what are you looking for. Everybody's talking about the fact that China is cooling down. The prices of real estate there are either stabilizing or dropping, and it is true that there are a lot of questions and a lot of challenges in the world, but somehow when everybody here takes everything together, the feeling is, I wouldn't say business as usual, but the amount of challenge that you see anytime, any year, any day. And if politicians can fix some of that, then they are optimistic about the future. Obviously, whether they can do that or not, some people are more optimistic, some people are more cynical.
Would you say that some of the optimism is also inspired by the fact that the European Central Bank tomorrow will probably announce more stimulus measures? Do you think that has an impact?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Do you think that the fact that the European Central Bank is expected to announce new stimulus measures tomorrow on Thursday has an impact also on the general optimistic mood?
Yes. There is a hope that finally the European Central Bank is going to approach the problem by its horn, do sort of the same that what the American, the U.S. Central Bank, the Federal Bank did 3 or 4 years ago, and maybe that will be the beginning of a new start for Europe. Although everybody also explained that the situation is obviously much more complicated because there's a monetary union, but you don't have a fiscal union.
Okay. Well, Eitan Avriel from The Marker, thank you very much for joining us from Davos. Hope to have you on the show again.
Thank you.
And now, exploding kittens and Is There Life on Mars in Media Watch with Daniel Roth. Daniel, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so exploding kittens?
Exploding kittens. This is the news that exploded today. It's Matthew Inman, who's a cartoon artist, worked together with 2 game designers to create something called Exploding Kittens. It's a card game. Let me start with that, actually. Let's back up a second.
Sick there, you know?
It's a card game. It's kind of like Russian roulette, but without guns. It's kind of like poker, but it's not at all like poker.
So why are we talking about this?
Oh, I'm sorry. Right. I got sidetracked. We're talking about this because they were seeking $10,000 on Kickstarter, and within an hour, they reached their goal. Within 10 minutes, they reached their goal. Within an hour, they reached 1,000% of their goal. And today, they've hit $1.6 million as we speak. It may be higher in the next couple of hours.
That's for a card game. Listen up, viewers. Obviously, there's something to be said here about Kickstarter and crowdfunding.
One of the reality, it sounds amazing. One of the realities, to take it back down to earth, is actually that essentially people are pre-ordering this card game because all the prizes you get on Kickstarter, you have to get something when you put in a pledge. Right. And so in this case, people are taking either the regular card game, the not safe for work card game, the deluxe collector's edition card game. Right. So people are getting something out of it. So it sounds really amazing, but what it actually is that it's an idea that caught on and is selling very well. It's not exactly donations.
But it's money being invested into their initiative, which, it's everything.
Right, absolutely. And speaking of money being invested, TechCrunch had this piece about SpaceX, Elon Musk's space baby, which is one of the more successful private programs for getting people, civilians, out into the stars. They just picked up $1 billion investment from Google and Fidelity, which is a very, very big deal. It means Google and Fidelity also are buying in 10% of the company, which tells us the company's worth $10 billion about. Again, they're one of the more successful venturing out into this. They're also working on something that Google's been working on as well, which is getting internet to be global to all of the rural areas, all the unconnected areas. Google has their Project Loon. SpaceX has this project that's actually taking them a little higher, a little further.
Right. Taking them all the way to Mars. Not an awful small affair at all.
Yes,
okay, next story.
And finally, we're looking at the Seattle Times. Amazon is going green. Amazon.com is going to be using wind power to power their data centers, which is a very big deal. It's a lot of power, a lot of oftentimes coal in the case of American companies powering data centers. Right. So this is a very, very big deal. It's going to be 500,000 megawatt hours of electricity being powered, which could be the equivalent of 46,000 American homes.
Oh, that's good news. Daniel Watt, thanks for joining us on The Economy Show.
Thanks for having me.
And that rounds it up for us on The Economy Magazine, your daily source for economic and financial reports at I-24 News. I'm Benjamin Chongal Fares. Thanks for joining us, and watch us again tomorrow.